welcome to another episode of the ConquerCast. I'm super excited today. We've got John Radzwilla. That last name, did I say it right, John?
Yep, you did.
Because that's got to be one of the coolest last names that I've ever seen, and maybe you can give us a little bit of background on Radzwilla. I mean, it's like Godzilla, but it's Radzwilla.
Radzwilla, yeah.
Radzwilla. It's so cool. But I'm super excited to have John on today. He is the CEO and founder of Hook and Barrel Magazine. We've recently connected, and it came by way of hearing John on the Mountain Tough podcast. Mountain Tough, they're a great partner of ours. You were up at that Tough Fest. I wasn't able to be there, but some of our team was, and I want to hear how that went as well, and your experience in working with some of our team on the Operation Conquer Hunger side. But one thing that, as I listened to the podcast that John did with Dustin there at Mountain Tough, there was one word that kind of came to mind. That our podcast is all about conquering more in life. It's the ConquerCast, so we want to understand from different people's perspective what they've done, what tools they've used, how has their mindset been, what's their physical routines, what's their faith, like how does that all play into helping conquer the mountains that come into our lives, and they will come into our lives. There's a word that kind of came to mind when I listened to you. And I don't know why, but this just kind of, this morning as I was listening again, it was Pathfinder. And I've actually got a really good friend. He wrote a book called Aspire. It's a book about words. And one of the chapters, it's Pathfinder. And I love that. Even in the hunting industry, a pathfinder is one who goes out, finds the path, puts their ear to the ground, sees the track, hears the game, knows how to get to him. But I want to read what he says as he describes a pathfinder as someone who discovers or creates a path where there wasn't one before. A pathfinder has a unique ability to lead others to envision a destination or a goal, and takes the steps to bring that vision to reality. They inspire and empower others to be intentional in their actions, seeing beyond obstacles and focusing on solutions rather than problems. And then my friend Kevin emphasizes that a pathfinder isn't about merely traveling a well-trodden path, but is about paving new ones that align with one's purpose, one's values, and a greater mission. So as I hear what you've done, with Hook and Barrel, and I want you to share this with our audience, like you're definitely a pathfinder. You're doing something that no one else has done, and I love kind of your passion for competition and even like the chip on your shoulder. And I'm getting into way too many things with this introduction, but John, thanks for being on here. I'm super excited. We tried to do this in person a couple weeks ago, but that wasn't able to happen. So thanks for joining me today.
Man, thanks for finding a path to making it happen, because I know you like in-studio stuff. So, but yeah, I was out in Utah, and I was hoping we were able to link up. We linked up really quick at the airport for a quick supplement drop.
Yeah, there was a powder pass at the airport that could maybe look or sound a little funny, but you were out here with Chase Rice for an elk hunt, right? And I wanted to get you guys some goodies for the hunt, and hopefully they helped out. But you guys tagged out pretty quickly, or else we would have done it in person.
Yeah, it was one of those, first day, never pass on a bull kind of moments. And I mean, God could have not planned it out any better. I mean, between how it all went down, we had enough time to get the footage we needed, and we just happened to find a great bull on night one. And sometimes these hunts get strung out where the filming gets long, and you're like, oh, all right, here it is, and oh no, there it goes. Like it worked out perfect, and it gave us 2 extra days to do all of the B-roll we needed to do all of the music things we needed to do. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything more, but except to actually meet with you in person. But
yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I understood, and when things happen like that, you got to get back to work and to family. And so this works out. We're testing a new platform to record podcasts remotely, and so this will be the first of many. And hopefully, I'm seeing that it says record, and hopefully we keep recording throughout, and we can do this with others that are around the country that I want to record with. But yeah, those first night harvests can sometimes people are like, oh, you got it done on the first night, you didn't have to put in the work or this or that, and sometimes it aligns the way it needs to. And those are tough calls to make. My daughter's hunt this year was a first night harvest as well. And, it doesn't always happen where a bull that's, a first night shooter walks in on you. But when it does, like, look at that blessing and take it as such. And you're putting meat in the freezer and you've got a beautiful animal, and why stress yourself out? But sometimes the stress of just deciding, do I do this now because I've got 4 more days, is enough to kind of send you through an anxiety rush. But my daughter had the same thing happen, and it was a major blessing. So it was a lot of fun. So glad you guys had that same experience.
Well, it's funny you brought up the word Pathfinder in the beginning, because it's, yeah, I mean, we're definitely find a way, make a way people. But when we were trying to coming back to some physical stuff, we're trying to put together basically a High Rocks team.
Yeah.
And when we threw out the names that we were talking about, like, how do we bring all these different groups between veterans and the outdoorsmen, kind of communities that we want to blend together, because my High Rocks partner is a vet. And so we're like, how do we put these things together? And he's like, well, let's use Pathfinder, because Pathfinder works in your, to your reference as from the hunting perspective, but also they were World War II elite paratroopers who would dive in behind enemy lines and, ahead of the main fighting force, marking the zones for follow-up troops. And so it's funny you bring up that word. That word came to mind because that was one of the team names that we were thinking of creating for our High Rocks team.
That's really cool, man. No, it's all it all comes together right when it needs to. And but I do see you as such, and listening to your story, and maybe I want to dive into your path leading you up to building this magazine. Going back to even your childhood, because I think there was things along your path and your life that created the resilience within you that allows you to be a Pathfinder. So maybe give us a little summary of what Hook and Barrel is, and then let's go back to your childhood. Tell us some things that you've conquered in life that have created this mentality within you, and then we'll dive in deeper into what Hook and Barrel is doing now, and is it matching your needs and your dreams and your visions and everything. But give us a little elevator pitch, and then let's go back in time.
All right. Well, so Hook and Barrel is a lifestyle and entertainment magazine for outdoorsmen, and so we cover the places, the faces, and the taste of the outdoors. We do a lot with fitness. We do a lot with gear reviews. We do a lot with travel and destinations, music, food and drink, etc. I had the idea several years ago, almost 8 years ago now, to basically create a redneck version of GQ, because a lot of those publications weren't lining up with my values. And I thought it was something that the industry needed. And lo and behold, it was a niche that we really desperately needed. And through an absolute unthinkable amount of effort, we managed to forge a path and find a way, make a way for ourselves through investing every little bit of our life savings into it, overcoming ridiculous obstacles that we would have never ever imagined, to hiring some incredible people. I just was having conversations this morning that's the number one rule: hire great people.
Yeah.
And it unfortunately takes a lot of bad people to help you find the right people, or even know what the right person really is.
Well, and I remember you saying on the podcast with Dustin that you had this idea while I was sitting in a bar, and you kind of wrote it up. You even had the logo and everything in your mind, and then somebody said, "Well, do you know how to do this?" You said, "No, but I'll surround myself with the right people." Right?
Yep, I did, and I came up with the idea, and I just kind of sitting in that bar, just wondering what I wanted to do. And we had a problem. We worked. My wife and I were running a small boutique local PR firm, and I was sick of chasing the media, and I said, screw it, let's become the media. And that's where the idea kind of originally started from. It started from a pain point in a prior business venture, and it turned into this. And that prior business venture in the beginning, we kind of robbed Peter to pay Paul, to basically bootstrap this thing to where it needed to be. Unfortunately, the people that I thought were the right people at that time were some of the wrong people that taught me. It was funny when we first hired them, they said, by the time we get done, you will have a master's in publishing. And I kind of smiled, and I thought, well, that's awesome. That's why we're hiring the right people. Well, as it turns out, they weren't. And in the process of trying to figure out what was going wrong in the initial phases of the magazine, through that retro engineering, I ironically gave myself a master's, and my wife as well, a master's in publishing, because we had to figure it out. We had jumped off that cliff. There was no more savings left. The parachute wasn't there, and we had to figure it out. And we figured it out in the nick of time. I mean, we were maybe at a couple 100 feet when we figured out how to deploy that parachute. Once we figured out how to make it, but yeah,
that's amazing, man. How long ago was that? When did you start this?
Our first issue actually was the Martin Truex Jr. cover. It hit in July, August of 2018. I probably started 6 to 8 months prior to that, kind of laying what the foundation would look like, figuring out the distribution model, figuring out like what the real business plan was. I mean, networking my butt off. I would go through 3 or 4 cell phone charges a day just on the phone, just calling, figuring things out. You know, a lot of great lunches, a lot of useless lunches. You know how it is in the beginning of starting a business. You meet with every opportunity possible out there. And, you know, within 8 months, we had what we needed, and we had the distribution, and we just hit print. So
that's awesome, man.
It was crazy.
There's a lot of sifting in those initial months and sometimes years to make sure that you've got the right people on the bus in the right seats, or you found the right partners that you mentioned values. I mean, what are some of those values that you needed to align with that meant something to you then, mean something to you now, that are the non-negotiables to you?
Well, for me, taking the high road is always a non-negotiable, even when it's the most painful road. Because at the end of the day, if you don't take that high road, there's always something shady in the valleys that you're going to have to hide from. And I find it a lot easier just to take the pain in the sun, essentially, so that you're never having to always remember the cover up or the lie or live with the fact that you did something shady. But really the values that start at the magazine more so were more conservative values along the lines of, you know, Christianity, gun rights, you know, those kind of things more so. Because when I look for a lifestyle publication, a lot of the ones that are go-to lifestyle ones for men are like Men's Health, your GQs of the world, your Maxims of the world. And there was just too many instances where it's just, you know, it's crazy if we even think about it, but even back then, the whole, I don't know, I hate the term, but like the whole wokeness side of things started a long time ago. And I was starting to see what was happening there. And I was reading GQ for the fashion and for the food and for the travel and destination. But at the same time, I'd have to like kind of roll my eyes and go over a page and like, oh, here it is. You know, we don't like this political person, or, you know, or here's some kind of crazy, you know, social issue that I'm on the other side of the conversation about. And I just was like, at the end of the day, I'm like, you know, a lot of these people I don't care about, really. You know, like I just kind of want the food and drink, but I could do the food and drink myself. You know, it's like, rather than having, you know, God, I don't know, some spokesperson for some agenda that I don't necessarily line up with. I mean, I could get down with Jocko, you know? And so that's why I decided to do it. And I knew that the masses were too looking for those kind of things. Like, I don't, you know, the hunting, fishing, shooting space, there are many different people in a broad spectrum of beliefs within that space. I mean, from your Pacific Northwest liberals that are fly fishermen and still gun owners, to your hardcore, you know, right-wing guys down in the heart of Texas, you know. But there's a common theme within the DNA of an outdoorsman, whether it be a car guy or, you know, campfires or, you know, just providing for your family or having some level of prepper, that I knew was out there. And I always say that the outdoors isn't red or isn't red or blue. It's green. And so I wanted to create a place for everybody that we could come around. And it really, I don't get into politics or anything within the magazine. I think that I certainly don't hide from my values. I mean, clearly a huge supporter of the Second Amendment. I mean, guns throughout. I'm not afraid of PETA, you know, like we hunt and we eat. But I'm not going to get into, the knee deep, scare tactics of, some of the other publications that are put out there. Like that's not us either. Like my goal really is to take somebody from, again, I hate getting into politics, but we're right now in the time of politics.
We're in the midst of it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But for me, it's getting somebody on the left side of things to the middle of the conversation, and the people that are in the middle of the conversation, maybe considering and coming into, the outdoor lifestyle. And I think we're seeing that shift. And, I've said it a million times, elections are won in the margins. And if I could shift 1% of a belief in somebody to maybe check out the outdoors or maybe pick up a rifle for their first deer hunt, all of a sudden we've got one more person who's left the ignorant side of the conversation and stepped into the asset side of life where they're, competent outdoorsmen. And so that's kind of how I look at it.
Is that your mission with the publication? Is that like to educate people on that, to bring people that way, to give them a clearer connection on what's going on there? And
yes, ultimately, yes. My first editorial note that I wrote was, I am an endangered species. It was, we conserve everything from habitat to the wildlife themselves, but we don't do a very good job at conserving the hunter. And hunting tended to be an older demographic, and we kept wondering why these numbers were dwindling. And for me, I was like, well, it's because the publications and the content that we consume is that of our dads or our grandfathers. Let's figure out some kind of content to re-engage the outdoorsman, while entertaining the veterans, while inviting newer people into the fold, while educating newer people, while entertaining the older people. And so that was really it. That kind of sparked it, but it's not my only mission. Truly, I want to, and I think we have at this point, marched our hook and barrel flag up to the top of the publication world, and maybe that's a little bit of an ego in there. I don't know. I just want to plant my flag in the top with a lot of the great publishers that are out there, to be known as that brand. Also, throughout a lot of it, I look at a lot of things in our country, and it comes back to mental health. And I always try to find, we have this great wisdom section in here. I like to curate content that could help people through tough times. Present.
What did that one say? It said, lose the anger, gain the edge.
Lose the anger, gain the edge. Yeah. So the Trident mindset, it's something that I got involved with. It was it's a mental health and mental toughness training program created by Navy SEALs, intelligence operatives, and neuroscience that teaches proven tactics for reducing stress. And these guys became actually friends of mine. I was actually a user of their app before they start writing for us. But it says here, anger is the punishment we give ourselves for someone else's screw up. And it talks about, are you going to let that one thing ruin your entire day because somebody else screwed up? But every issue we have something like that in there. And I like to produce, great covers with people that could bring value into people's lives, but that are also instantaneous, recognizable. So that's a little bit of my ministry too, is providing just great content. And like even my editor's notes still, a lot of editors will write notes like, hey, check out page 6. There's this great feature, and the cover was a great cover. And before you leave, make sure you check out the food section. I really like to kind of wear my heart on my sleeves and kind of say, I just learned how to deer hunt, 15 years ago. It was an absolute mess. This is just my wandering brain, wondering about, the meaning of life in the woods, and
just to be vulnerable, right? People want to hear that.
Right. Because I think a lot of times we try to be so tough anymore that we've lost that vulnerability, and that's where people connect, right?
Maybe the toughest thing to do or to be is vulnerable, right? And people want to ask these questions. They want to understand. They're not willing to open up or speak up. And that's so much of what is going on with mental health issues, in our country, in our world. And when you open up, it's what I found, going through financial difficulties or whatnot, and I put my ego walls up, there were so many people around me experiencing the same thing. And had I dropped those walls and we supported each other in a different way, there would have been collaboration, there would have been support. I could have lifted, they could have lifted me. But maybe the toughest thing, and I don't think it's soft. I think it's a tough thing to be vulnerable. And so if you can push past that ego that's keeping us from it, the good we can do in this world. So I see you doing that for sure with what you're doing. So
it goes back to standing in the light. Like, I am who I am. And you know what? The reason I'm in the position I am is because of the things that I experienced in life. Maybe nobody else could do what I did, probably because of the very fingerprint we have on everybody's fingerprint's unique, right? So, I had to go through certain things, but the hope is that maybe just the vulnerability or the people on the cover or just some of the articles within, there's deeper thought to then rather just throwing words on a page for me. I hope that somebody picks it up, even if one person, like we got an absolutely great email just thanking us for some of the wisdom that we put out in the last issue. And, it's just, if I could change one person's life, that's the better while maintaining
that fuels you, right? To go on to touch the next person. I've always said that Mountain Ops is built one relationship at a time. I'm sure you're doing it and feeling the same thing, where it's, you're getting out to the masses, but one person that's impacted, they give you that feedback. It fuels you to go out and get the next person. And you're doing incredible things, man. Where do people find, how many issues are you releasing every year, and where do people find the publication?
We do 6 a year. You could subscribe on hookandbarrel.com. You could find us on all of the usual social media channels as well, and we'll link back to subscription. Or you could pick it up for free at many Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's in the Southeast, as well as some of the top tier independently owned retailers throughout the country. We're in 48 states. We're at the exit of their doors. A lot of times,
wasn't that where it kind of got started with him? With
Bass Pro.
Is that what you're going to say, or?
Well, no, I was going to say it's cheaper to subscribe online than go to a sporting goods store, because I always leave.
You leave not empty-handed.
I always leave I spend way more money than $40. That's what our subscription is. But it started in Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. We were blessed enough to know the right people inadvertently. I never really knew too much, and Johnny Morris, who owns Bass Pro Shop and Cabela's, had a nephew that I knew and came to with a business plan, never really knowing his involvement in Bass Pro Shops. And he said, how would you like, my uncle has a bait store in Missouri. How would you like to start there? I'm like, well, every journey starts with a step. And then as it turns out, his uncle was Johnny Morris. And that's how we got into all of Texas. And then they asked us to expand into more stores. We went to Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, but every one of these represents $1, or probably more than that now. Gosh, probably like $2. Yeah. But so we give them away for free at those stores, and that's how I built the distribution, because you can't get advertisers without distribution, right? But you can't get distribution without the advertisers. There's only one other way, and that's literally sink your life savings into it, and that's what we did. Not many people are willing to take that risk.
Taking the risk. Yeah. I mean, that's what Pathfinders do. It's what entrepreneurship is all about. And I just commend you. And when I hear the story, it's like I'm just so excited for you. And blessed that I'm hearing your story, I'm learning about you, and other people are as well, because it inspires those that are listening. We've got a lot of people that want to try their wings at something, that want to, or take their physical life to another level, and they're scared, they're anxious, they don't have the mental fortitude right now, but they need people in their life to tell them, hey, like, I know you had people tell you it couldn't be done. I know you had people that, put the chip on your shoulder, and you're like, okay, I'm going to use that, not for anger, but for like, I'm going to prove them wrong, and then I'll go give them a hug after. I love that, listening to some of your podcasts about that. You've mentioned a few things to succeed the way that you have, and to understand people the way that you do. You mentioned pain a few times, and I feel like every pain has a purpose. It leads us down a path, but we have to, in order to understand that purpose or to utilize it, to own it, you have to make a choice along those steps in life. You have to choose to look at the pain and say, there's something that I'm receiving that I wouldn't have had without this pain. And I want to go to maybe some of those pain points in your life that that were perspective gaining moments, because with that pain as well, you are now most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. And that's what I love about this podcast, is we're hearing people's stories of the pain that they experienced, what they've gone through. And there's somebody listening right now that's like, I'm in the shoes you were in. And that's a powerful position if you choose to see it that way, and then you choose to be vulnerable to share what you're sharing. So maybe take us back to your childhood. I know you lost your father, and you had some bullying, and that, sent you down a path of like trying to become mentally tough, physically tough at the age of 14. All this stuff. Like, tell us about this.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, I lost my dad when I was 7. I don't have many memories of my dad. I have a few that I think I may have created in my head from the videotapes that I had watched, to maybe somehow like superimpose myself from that from the VHS tape into like real life, if that makes any kind of sense. Wow. But sometimes those blend when you're very young. Yeah. Sadly, one of my few memories of my dad was actually hugging him in the hospital when he was already deceased, and so that was tough. I think back about that and how I reacted. I was scared. I don't think I hugged him actually. I hope I did, but I don't think I did. I was very scared. But that kind of started off my journey in a way, because I had to start figuring things out. And my mom was an awesome mom. She was my best friend growing up. There's just certain things that moms just can't teach boys. Yeah. And I just kind of had to go do it. And so, and then high school, my mom remarried. Was not the best remarriage. And it ultimately ended in a divorce. And that guy wasn't very, in the beginning it was, but towards the back half, maybe the last third, it was just an absolute disaster. Definitely was not good to me. I spent a lot of my times trying to escape that chaos within the house, and pretty much hiding out in the woods and building tree forts and learning how basically, I thought I was just learning how to make a fire because it was cold or dark. I thought I was, trying to catch crayfish because I just was bored out of my mind, and let's see what that damn thing that moved in the creek, let's go try to catch it. Unbeknownst to me, it was basically 10 years of bushcraft, self-taught. Yeah. And so
survival, right? You were learning survival at that young age.
Yeah. So I learned a lot of that kind of stuff. I mean, you could put me in any situation, and I could pretty much figure out how to make a fire within minutes. Or survive. Definitely not like naked and afraid kind of surviving, because I don't like mosquitoes that much. but yeah. So that was the home life side of it, and then I would go to school to escape a lot of that, and there was a lot of bullying in school. It was. Where
did you grow up?
I grew up in Mountaintop, Pennsylvania. Northeastern Pennsylvania, outside the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton area. If you've ever watched The Office, our hometown airport is full of The Office and Dunder Mifflin stuff.
Many times, yeah.
That's the area I grew up in. For those that are listening or watching, people think of Pennsylvania. They don't think of the outdoors per se because of Philly and Pittsburgh and the proximity to Manhattan. But if you've ever been there or you're from there, it's Pennsyltucky between those cities. And we grew up it was very rural. Great deer, great outdoors. I've actually never shot a deer in Pennsylvania.
No way.
I
the numbers of hunters though in Pennsylvania are astronomical compared to like Utah. The opening day hunters that are out, I can't believe like the comparison.
We got the first day off of school for opening day of whitetail. So.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing.
But then I would go to school to escape the BS happening at home, and that was, let's see, I graduated in 2003, and so that was like late 90s. I was in high school, and before that, there wasn't much control on bullying, and I think at this point we have gotten so far to the other side of that pendulum that never endorsing bullying, but we've definitely become a very soft group of people now. But in my particular situation, there were a handful of other peers within my classes that were just absolutely brutal to me, and it was not a good, healthy situation at all. I spent a lot of times. It probably built a lot of self-confidence issues. It's made me, a lot of doubt in my mind still. But it does have lasting effects. And then I would go home and deal with bullshit there, and then I would go back to school and deal with a different level of bullshit. So there's a lot of like, just go to the woods and get away from it.
Is that where you find peace and comfort at that time? Was just escape to your own to the woods?
Two things: escape to the woods, or the other thing is I had a guy that I worked for. He was a mentor. He kind of stepped up when I didn't have a dad or somebody to teach me how to do things, and I worked for him for years, and I learned a tremendous amount. So if I wasn't like dodging BS on either side of my life, I worked my butt off. I worked every night. I would work every evening. What
were you doing for work at that age?
Oh man, dude. His name was Dr. Carl, Dr. Dave Carl.
Yeah.
Dr. Dave, he would have everything from us to picking up sticks in the yard to literally he went and bought a small like steamroller, and we would like roll like rocks and gravel and set up parking lots for different properties he was buying. So I mean, literally everything from picking up sticks to using heavy equipment we did. And when I was younger, it was mostly cutting grass and working in the pool and like making sure like the fences were
just around his property.
Yeah, but then I always joke too that he there's something happened in his childhood where maybe he didn't have a sandbox or something because he had to go buy backhoes and steamrollers and dump trucks. So like the guy he had so much, and then he would buy more and more properties, and I don't even know how many properties he has, and I haven't talked to him in 15 years. I don't even know where he's at really.
Did he know what he was doing for you at that time? Or was this just he was needing some stuff done, but or did he know he was providing something that you needed?
That's a question that I would ask him if I ever sat down and had a beer with him. I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to know, right?
I think he had an idea. He never expressed it to me. But he saw some of the stuff I was going through. Yeah, I'm sure he did. I'm sure somewhere in his heart of hearts he was. Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean I learned a lot from him. I mean, I could build and work with my hands because of years of doing that. And then as I graduated from high school, I moved away and I moved to the city and moved to Pittsburgh. Had a few mentors there. Then I eventually got a job down in Dallas. I moved to Dallas, Texas, where I met my wonderful wife, Natalie, and she's now our COO at the company.
Very cool.
And to be honest with you, Dave never let me drive the backhoe too much, or not backhoe, the dump truck too much, because I was not very good at driving a standard, and that continued on into my adult years. And my wife was actually the one, since I didn't have a dad, she's like, "Hey, my dad taught me how to drive a standard, and and I always wanted a Mustang, 5-speed Mustang, and that was the first car that I bought when I moved down to Dallas, and smoked the clutch within 60 days or something." And she's like, "All right, I'm going to teach you how to drive this thing." And so, again, funny. It's putting down your ego and not being too macho. So yeah, my wife taught me how to drive a standard. I didn't have that. So and cool. She did. So, it's just, you just never know, what people are going through, but also you can't be too tough to ask, the questions, because otherwise you're going to go through life just ignorant.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah. Was this bullying that happened to you in school, was this just verbal, or did there end up being like physical bullying that you kind of had to deal with? Or
there was different degrees. It was definitely verbal and physical. It was a lot of verbal that got kind of brutal, but just like any dark alleyway, like you'd get into the wrong hallway and the teacher wouldn't be around and something get thrown at you, or you'd eventually get eventually you're going to have to go to the boys' room, and you're going to end up in there and you're going to get shoved up against a wall or whatnot. Or sometimes there was a few seriously good fights, and so it just depended. It just depended on who was in a bad mood, and probably a lot of times what you pour out is actually what's within. So who knows what was happening with those kids at home, or why they were being the way they were being, or what was wrong with them, and after a while too, after you put up with all the shit at home and then all the stuff that I was dealing with at school, I guarantee you at some point my adolescent tasting the beginnings of like testosterone self would just mouth off too. I'm sure I brought some of it on myself too, just because eventually you're going to hit your breaking point. You're going to talk smack back. You talk smack to a bully, they're going to come after you.
Yeah. No, so, it makes sense. So,
it sucked.
Yeah, no, that's horrible. I mean, I'm a father. Do you have a son that's like 4 or 5 years old?
He's 5, little Jack, named after my dad.
Little Jack, named after your dad. Okay, that's awesome. And you never want your kids to go to school and have that experience. And I think of your father passing away. From what I remember, it was a heart attack, correct? And he was fairly young. I don't know if 51. You know this, but 50. Wow, that's. I lost my dad this last year, and he was 83. So he was. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. He was later in life, but had a fall down the stairs and broke his neck. So it was very sudden and tragic. Oh my gosh. And but I don't know if you know this, but Mountain Ops exists because of my dad, and it was because he had a heart disease and he had a few stents put in his heart. And my dad's dad died of a heart attack. My mom's dad died of a stroke, and so my mission was to help my father and my family that deals with heart disease, and all the millions of people out there that are dealing with it as well. And so we created a product called Enduro that is all about nitric oxide to increase blood flow and nitric oxide levels in the body. And it's to help those with heart disease. So there's that little tie. When I heard about your father and him passing away from that, when my father was, when they resuscitated him actually, and the doctors and the paramedics just said his heart is extremely strong. He was supposed to have open heart surgery after having stents put in. But his doctor just told him, whatever your son's giving you, just keep taking, because that's changing your life. And so that's what we did. We just kept him on the product. And that's how the whole Mountain Ops formulation system, it all stems from Enduro. And then Ignite has Enduro in it. Yeti, our pre-workout, has Enduro in it. But it starts with the core and the heart. So I just wanted to bring that kind of tie back to it. Yeah.
Good, because I drink that every day.
You drink it all the time, yeah. And so, if you have a history of it as well, I mean, it's definitely a product which a lot of Americans, a lot of people around the world, they're dealing with that. It's one of the number one killers out there. And so when I heard that, I thought, okay, I've got to bring this up, because that's why this started. And my dad was my mission. He's still you still feel their influence even though they're gone. And I definitely have a strong belief in God and in heaven and in what comes after, and the relationships that matter most in this life. They don't end with death. And but for you as a father now, you have your own son, and you grew up with just very distant memories of your father and not having that father figure. How has that changed the trajectory of your life and your relationship with your son?
Yeah, man, it's a special one. Jack is definitely a daddy's boy. He's attached to me at the hip, and I don't even know where to start with that question. I carry a lot of guilt a lot of times because I can't spend every waking moment with him because I was 7 when my dad passed. So I mean, Jack is 5 and a quarter, going on 5 and a half. So if you want to look at that timeline, there's not much time between me and my dad versus where Jack is. So I try to spend as much time as I can with Jack. It's also tough when you're running a company, you're running a million miles an hour. But there's so many things that I do just to impart wisdom in him. I also write down things when I can, or I try to tell him every story and really drive home and make sure that he understands, here on the map is where I was in Utah, here's where I was in Montana, and this is what I was doing. And I'll show him videos and pictures, and I try to burn as much in his heart or in his head that, God forbid anything happened to me, that he at least would have more memories than I did. Just from the first moments of, taking him to the deer blind for the first time a few months back to, showing up to his lunch yesterday to surprise him when I got back from Nashville. I woke up at 4 a.m. to get out of Nashville and get home, and I landed just in time for his 10:45 lunch at school, and I made sure that I was there, and he came tearing over, and just as much time as I can. And, there's often times where sometimes, I think every parent deals with it too. I mean, Sometimes I just want to run away. That's what like, I need a second, kid. You're driving me nuts. Driving me nuts. But
and that's good for them too, to
Yeah.
have, that you have your thing and you got some time, but then you come back and it sounds like you are super, super intentional with that time you do have with them.
Yeah, I try to, and and just, every one of these magazines I keep, and I think about him when I'm writing the editor's note, because I'm like, someday my kid is going to pick this up when he's my age and want to know lessons. 'Cause I didn't learn any of these. I don't have a whole lot from my dad. Like, he was the mayor of our town, a small town. He owned a commercial contracting business, but that's what I know. But like the leadership lessons of, being the mayor of the town, or the business savvy it took to run a commercial, contracting company, these kind of things I don't have, and I can't go back to my mom because she doesn't necessarily know them, and nobody else in the family knew them. And so I there's a lot of things I do and consider and want to implement in order to set him up. Just even like the back to the bullying thing, he's in jiu-jitsu. He's been in jiu-jitsu for over a year, or he's going on a year now. And I just want to make sure that he's always able to take care of himself. Sometimes I'm a little extra hard on him because I want to make sure that, one, I present the world. Your number one job as a parent is to raise as a good human, right? It's not to like be their best friend. It's to prepare them for life. And if they actually, it's a success if they are able to leave the house at 17, 18 years old and never come back, and they're able to go on their own. Which is going to be a bad day for me, but it's going to be a great day as well. But in teaching him about God, reading to him at night, making sure he says his prayers, teaching him about business. I mean, especially my wife is incredible when it comes to sales, and so heck, just a couple of weeks ago, he was out at the community garage sale hawking his little bike for $40 and like negotiating with people.
That's awesome.
To all the things I think we do as parents, right? I mean, every good parent is going to try to set their kid up for success, and so I think it's just losing my dad. I think I put more emphasis than I should on certain things, but I think it's just because of the journey that I had. So,
yeah. I mean, you've got to learn from those. I mean, everyone has their journey. They have their life pain points and those perspective moments, and you can either look at those as a hitching post or a guidepost, and it looks like you're using those as a guidepost to kind of lead out where you want to go and how you want to be as a father. And I think you just shared with our audience some really good recipes and ingredients for success, where it's like time and attention, and you get home and maybe you're tired from coming back from that trip, but you show up at unexpected to his school lunch and you're there for him, and then he gets to see his hero coming in and having that experience with you, and the little routines that are, I feel like some people say they're the simple things. I think they're the sacred things. It's like praying with them at night, reading a scripture with them, teaching them about God, and that way when they do go off at 18 or whatnot. I've got a daughter. My oldest is 20. I still feel like I'm 20 years old myself, but she's in Brazil right now, and she's I'm not there with her every day. I can't even communicate with her every day, but knowing that she knows a God that loves her and can guide her path, and that she can speak to through prayer, and was super important. Probably the most important thing that I felt like I could leave with my kids as they go, because I don't know what tomorrow holds for me or for them. And so if they know that they have that divine connection, there's anything they can get through in life as long as they have that. So you're doing amazing things, you and your wife. So great job on kind of leading out and using the life's perspective that you've gained for that. Real quick, like, how you're busy. You've got this business, this magazine, competitive environment. You've got your wife and your son, and you're doing the family thing. You've got hunting season going full force right now. You're leaving on a hunt tomorrow, and then there's this physical aspect of life that I feel like if it's not met, if you don't incorporate it into your life, you can't get to everything you're doing right now. Like if you were just this, after all of this, you're a couch potato, you're just sitting around, like, I don't think you could do or keep up with everything you've got. So how do you intentionally involve physical fitness into your routine and regimen so that you can achieve the results? How important is that to you?
Physical fitness is the key pillar in everything that I do. it's just not from a health perspective, and it's just not for setting the right example for my kid, because I want my kid to see me and think I'm his hero, and and I think it keeps you healthy. But really, the biggest thing about fitness is it comes to one word: it's discipline. And if you could stay disciplined in your fitness, you're going to be disciplined in a lot of different aspects of your life. It also helps back with the endorphins. It's an energy level thing. It's a competitive thing, and also too, it's a mental health thing, and not just from a physicality standpoint. It's you're unplugged when you're running. You're running. You're not checking text messages. You can't do that. I try to put my phone on do not disturb, and then just put in my headphones and just listen to music or whatever I'm going to do. I would be nothing without fitness. And I think a lot of people might see what I do, especially from a high rocks perspective or an endurance sports thing, and it's really just more of a recent thing. The high level I've been performing at.
Because is the season for High Rocks going on right now? Are you also amidst the hunting and the magazine and family? You're competing as well.
Yeah. So right, it's crazy. So the first North American race was a few weeks ago in Toronto, Canada. The next one coming up, I'm racing is Chicago. I'm running Chicago men's double pro or pro doubles. Then I flip back to Dallas, which is the next weekend. Then I'm off to Vegas, Houston, and Miami. And my knucklehead friends recently just informed me yesterday that I may or may not be signed up for the Daytona ultramarathon in December, which I don't think I'm going to be able to do, just because from really not I physically could do it. I just don't know from a timing perspective. Yeah. But I've got a lot going on, and you've got to find a way, make a way. Again, it's being a Pathfinder. Whether I just was in probably the world's dirtiest hotel gym I've ever been in Nashville just a few days ago. I also went running that night too. I ran 4.5 miles that night. Again, a lot of times the sidewalks would end, and I was running through God knows what, fell in a hole, got into a standoff with the raccoon at one point.
No way.
Yeah. You're just running through the darkness, almost hit by a pizza delivery guy as I was running across the intersection who didn't pay attention. And then I went and worked out in that nasty freaking gym. But it's discipline, and if I don't do that, I'm going to feel, not only am I not going to have the endorphins, but I'm going to not feel good about myself. I'm going to have given up on my goals, and I would have given myself an out. And so one of the things too is we're talking about Tough Fest with Mountain Tough. Michael Easter spoke there, and Michael Easter wrote a great book that I love called The Comfort Crisis. Yeah. And I think that's something that America is definitely in. We have, to our credit as a species, created a very cushy atmosphere. But unless you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you're never going to grow. And back to some of that pain, right? And it's not sadistic, but what it is I do enjoy uncomfortable situations, because it helps stretch me to be a better person, a better business leader, a better father. And so, and part of that comfort, part of the places I find discomfort if I'm not hunting, is in the physical fitness world. Yeah. And actually, I just wrote a post about it today. I was running, and it's like, I don't know. Do you remember that Saturday Night Live skit way back in the day, like Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy or something? Yeah. It's like treadmill thoughts with Radzwilla. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know, I think I'm 6 miles in on this ridiculous interval run I'm doing. And there's that stop button, the big red stop button. That's the emergency button. And I wrote, I took a picture of it, and I made a post about it. And I said, weak people are going to hit that button when the times get tough. The foolish will press on and at that same pace and eventually blow up. But the strong will back off the pace, regroup, and then come back stronger and win. And it's stuff like that. It's finding that uncomfortable. I was looking at that button because I was like, this is really hurting. I didn't eat right last night. I didn't get enough sleep while I was in Nashville. I could hit that button, or I can't, or I could just back off that pace a little bit, and that's what I ended up doing. And it's that physicality, it goes back to business leadership. I mean, and the things you have to deal with as an entrepreneur, right? You could just tap out and bankrupt yourself, or you could just keep running it into the ground and eventually go that same way, or you could just, back off, regroup, take a deep breath. And then, it's like Jocko says, you step off the firing line, step off, get a better view of what's going on, then get back into it. And so, there's so many lessons that come from fitness. It's crazy.
That's amazing. And you're competing in high rocks at a pretty high level right now. Is that correct?
Yeah. So
in the doubles with Talon, is he your
with
teammate in that?
Yeah, Talon was always a fitness mentor of mine. He's now become a partner.
Okay.
He's pushed me a ton. We compete in the men's pro division. Last year, I podiumed all but one of the races I ran. Still missing a number one though. Which my little boy will remind me all the time. Like, Dad, you've got a flag that says you've got a 2 flag and a 3 flag. You need a 1 flag. I'm like, these are one of those moments you're driving me crazy, kid.
So is that voice in your head from your son what drives you, or like what what will it be that will get you to that one? What does it take? I mean, I'm sure there's major competition out there.
Dude, there's just so many people, and you could drive yourself nuts. It'll go back to Jocko, or it could go back to Cam Haynes, or it could go back to David Goggins. Like, they're always preaching that when you're sleeping or when you're sitting still, there's somebody out there grinding, and that's what drives me nuts. I just never know when my competition is working, and so I feel guilty like sitting on the couch for a moment. But no, it's I got so close. I missed Worlds last year by 50 seconds. Should have had it. I mean, if I lose by 5 minutes, I've lost by 5 minutes. Like, there's no debating that. When you're that close, though, it's the difference between stopping for a water break or maybe slowing down too much on the rower, or heck, it could even be too many people on the course running around. It could be out of your control.
You just can't get around them.
You just can't get around them. But that's what drives me. I'm a highly, highly competitive person. But actually, back to mountain ops, part of it too is nutrition, and I've actually I engaged Eric McCormick as my nutritionalist, because that's the thing that I know that's probably a lot of part where I'm lacking. Is I think a lot of athletes are malnourished, and he's definitely pointed out the fact that I was as well. Yeah. I mean, I'm burning 1,000 calories in an hour in my races, and at least 3 days a week running and doing what I'm doing in the gym, and definitely malnourished. And so I mean, there's so much to this race, because you're dealing in fractions of minutes, and that's where it gets tough. But the nutrition side's huge. I take the Enduro. The protein is awesome. Your protein bar, or your snack bars or protein bars, those things are great. Especially when you need like high calories quick. I mean, just and Eric's a great representation of your company as well. The guy's always, he's a wealth of knowledge.
Oh, he's amazing, and he's on our advisory board at Mountain Ops, so he provides content, and there will be a lot more of it coming out from him, where it's, he talks about the 5 components of fitness, and the first one is team. And so it looks like you've got Eric on your team, you've got Mountain Ops supporting you. Like, we want to be on your team, providing you with what you need to fuel that, not just for your races and as an athlete, but I mean, to keep up as a dad, as a business owner, as a hunter, all that. Like, that's what our brand is all about. And maybe at the end here, you can tell us what your favorite Mountain Ops product is, and we'll give that product away to a couple listeners. But I'm glad you've connected with Eric and bring it back to that there's that's what Mountain Ops is there for. And the team at Mountain Ops with Eric McCormick and others, like, we want to be able to fuel people's lives and help them live their passions the way that they should on a different level than maybe they are. And that drives the mental fitness as well, and toughness. And I know that's a big part of what you're doing to help people out there and lift people up that way mentally. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to just maybe touch on a couple things right as we close. One being, and maybe let's go with this first. What's the product you'd like to give away to our listeners today? What product are you using most or enjoy most from Mountain Ops?
Yeah, man. So two. If that's okay.
We're gonna give two.
First off, okay. So Enduro, I definitely like Enduro. And even now, more so knowing more about it too. I think that's now I'm really going to start taking more of it. But no, I like it. It's a great product. I will say that if you're not putting anything physical, any kind of physicality into your life, and you take that, it's not going to be a miracle worker, but it is just a piece of the puzzle, the greater picture. When you're trying to invest in yourself, that's definitely something I would. And when you're not trying to invest in yourself, you heard it from me, you didn't hear it from Mountain Ops, but that mountain cocoa, you take that and you put a little bit of Fireball on that around the campfire. That is my secret. I don't drink a whole lot anymore, especially with the physicality. Yeah. But that is a great campsite drink.
Was that the Utah drink out here, and you and Chase Rice sitting around the fire playing music?
No. He's a tequila guy, and I was. Again, I keep saying I really try not to drink, but in the being a business owner and an outdoorsman, it's hard to avoid sometimes. So no, but I will plug another Utah company. It was High West, High West Campfire. That was my sipper next to the campfire with Chase.
All
right. Yeah.
Okay, we'll give. So is the Enduro and the hot Ignite? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the hot Ignite in the packets though. It's got to be the packets because if you do it in the tub, it.
So these babies right here.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's actually what I've been sipping on because it's a little chilly here in Utah, and I got a craving for it every day that I just gotta settle down. So no, that's awesome. I was gonna ask you before you mentioned it, the post you made today on the treadmill. Like, what are you learning in life right now that's like super applicable to mental toughness and pushing through and resilience? But maybe that treadmill message from today is what you're learning, or is there anything else you'd want to add
from a mental toughness standpoint?
Conquering in life, and a lot of that comes down to mental and physical as well. But
yeah, no, you know what? The older that I get, so I just turned 40. You've got to realize it takes all kinds, and that if you don't, you're going to get seriously frustrated all the time, and you're going to always be spending time and energy on things that anger you, that you can't change. And as many times as I look at somebody, hey, I'm guilty. Like, I just shake my head. I'm like, what in the world is going on with this person? Hey, look, every bee in the hive has a purpose, right? And so you just got to focus on you and forget about all that other nonsense, and also realize that everybody has a journey in their lives. Like, I mean, I didn't, just up until a minute ago, I didn't know your father's story and what drove the company. So it's really I'm really working on myself. I think everybody's in a process till the day they die at some level. Yeah. From an empathy standpoint, it's something that I'm working on big time. My younger, hard driving self was just like smashed through the walls, and I think maybe the bullying side of things and losing my dad early kind of sucked away a lot of my empathy. But I'm trying. I'm not the best, but I'm trying. There's there's a battle every day, and sometimes you just kind of have to give people grace. It's hard as a business owner. It
is. I mean, giving people grace is important.
Yeah, and
giving yourself grace.
That's a mental toughness thing too, right? Like, I think so much messaging comes out about being super tough. I mean, there's like that Goggins effect. Everybody wants to be David Goggins. But I don't even think David is that fired up 24/7. You couldn't, I might be wrong, but you can't always be that intense. Like, you've got to not only give others, but you also have to give yourself grace. Like, you're going to have a bad day. I think people see Cam Hanes always running, but I guarantee you there's some days where his legs are heavy and feel like crap, and he probably might have a stomach issue going on, and he just maybe didn't sleep well the night before. And so you may see on social media that Cam's running, but he may have recorded that 3 days prior, and you can't set your journey on what you see on other people's journeys, because a lot of times what you're seeing is not the real thing. And everybody's entitled to a bad day, man. I mean, I have to remind myself that all the time in the gym. Like, everybody like not every day is going to be a burner.
Right.
Like I started my day off today. It was terrible. I woke up sick. I had chili last night. Probably should not have had chili because Eric has me eating so many calories now. So
yeah,
3,000 calories. I'm like, oh, I made homemade deer
eating
chili.
is now a job. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I woke up a little stomach sick, and then I'm sore and I didn't sleep well, and I went to the gym and my workout started off really sucky, and by the end I felt great. But there's some days I just go and I hate it. 300 calories into it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I got to give myself grace. So
that's good. You got to do you and be you. And you said that at the beginning. You're you, and I would say no matter where you're at, just be yourself. And that we look at social media, and there's so much comparison going on. And you're always comparing yourself against your worst day against everyone's best day. And
bingo, that's a great way of saying it.
And comparison is the thief of joy. And one of our core values at Mountain Ops is joy. And I want to look back on this journey and say, you know what, the connections, the choices, the mindset, the service, the trust, the whatever it is, it brought me and my team and my family joy. Like that's the journey I want to be on. Last question for you, and then we'll wrap things up. When all is said and done, you are a conqueror. I would say, like, you put the definition of a conqueror, and there you are. There's your face. As a conqueror, how will you measure your life?
Ooh. You know what? My wife actually, speaking of Chase Rice, we were having a conversation with him, and she had a great quote. And I actually wrote this onto the rifle we gifted him this morning. Don't be well known, be known well. And I think that's kind of, I want to, when all's said and done, I think that you're not going to please everybody in this world, and you're going to rub the wrong people, or you're going to rub people the wrong way. So you can't be perfect. But I think that at the end of the day, when all is said and done, I just want people to look at me and just go, you know what? He never slowed down, never backed down from a challenge, gave it his all at all times. He came in sliding sideways, screaming "yeehaw" all the way. I think that's so important. Awesome. It's so important, and just but have everybody just kind of just remember you for the good that you did, no matter if it was one person or millions of people, but again, it goes back to taking the high road. Just always freaking take the high road. It's a lot easier, and you're going to be known well rather than well known. And if being known well turns to being well known, great. But if it doesn't, just always just always remember somebody else is on a different journey. So at the end of the day, I just kind of want that message would be kind of like what I want to pass on to my kid. I don't really do anything anymore for anybody else. As in those terms, I do for what Jack is going to remember his dad as, because that's what he's going to tell his kids about. So I'm thinking not Jack even. I'm even thinking his kids, like what they're going to say about their grandfather. So yeah, I don't know.
Man,
just give
awesome.
it hell every day, man.
So many good nuggets in there throughout this, and taking the high road. Appreciate you as a Pathfinder for so many people to follow, and setting that example. And because of that, you'll be known well for the life that you have lived and are living and will live in the future. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for being a conqueror. Thanks for showing that example, and appreciate you being on here today. Everyone go check out John and Hook and Barrel Magazine. Thanks for all you're doing.
Thanks, man. Yep, hookandbarrel.com. Check it out.